Today I'm going to be talking to you about project templates in Logic. And if you need to get started quickly and easily without reconfiguring everything that you really like from beginning to end every time you load Logic, this is probably the best way to do it. Now, the very first thing is if you have a template that you're happy with or a file that you've made previously and didn't know how to save it as a template, I'm going to show you that first and foremost, because this tutorial might not apply to you, or you just want to get to the really easy good bits. So let's Command Tab to Logic.
Logic OS.
And the first thing you want to do is go to the File menu.
Menu bar, File, New, Open ellipsis, Open close, Save Command, Save as ellipsis, Command Shift, Save a copy as ellipsis, Save as template ellipsis.
Save as template. There might be a key bound in your key commands, but there isn't for mine. And you hit Enter.
Save as template. Save template as dialog.
And then we have a dialog come up, a usual save dialog, and it saves in the correct place, which is in the project templates folder inside your music, audio music apps. So you can just basically call this file untitled or whatever you want to call it. And then let's go and show you what we do with it afterwards.
Save as.
So I will do Command Comma now, and we'll go into Preferences.
Preferences dialog.
The first thing we're going to do is check that we're in the General toolbar.
Toolbar, project toolbar in general.
Selected.
Which is, so that's good. I'll come out of that. We'll stop interacting.
Out of toolbar.
And then we'll go across all the way down to Startup Actions.
Project handling, editing tab, project handling.
Selected.
Well, actually, you know Logic. There is toolbar tabs, and there are also tabs within those tabs. So it's kind of weird. So we want General and then Project Handling just to be on the safe side. Make sure I give you as much information as possible. Let's go down the screen now.
Edit, notification, startup action. Create new project using default template. Pop-up button.
So this option here is what we want. I think by default, well, let's look in the menu and see what options there are.
Menu tick, create, ask, do nothing. Open most recent project.
Ask, do nothing, open most recent project.
Open existing project.
Open existing project.
Select a template.
Select a template.
Create new empty project.
Create new empty project.
Tick, create new project using default template.
And create new project using default template is the option that I have set at the moment.
Create new project.
If I come out of this
Using default
window or this dialog and go to the right,
Default template. Untitled button.
then there's a button.
When opening a project, ask to close current project S.
Ticked.
So let
Checkbox.
me go back one.
Untitled button. Choose
Default.
button. Logic.
And then there is a list here, and I can review this list. And once you've saved your template, you will notice that there's a list of templates showing in this window.
Cancel. Details. Digging template. Collection.
So we need to go into the collection.
In image. Image. Digging template. Image. Nothing. Image. Music of the soul. Image. Piano roads and despair. Image. Piano. Roads stack and piano strings. Image. Recording. Image. Reggae template. Image. Splits. Image. Untitled 2. Image. Untitled 2.
So as you hear, those are my templates at the moment. I don't have an untitled template because I'm going to now make one. So if that's all you wanted to know about project templates and you're happy with what you've done, then the end of the tutorial is here for you. If you want to stick around and let me show you some of the things that I would add to a template, and it's probably going to be semi-long, then let's get on with it. So we're not going to save this right now because I've done no work on it.
Untitled
I'm going to
button.
come out of here,
When opening a project.
close Preferences,
Untitled. Tracks. Win.
and I've basically just loaded Logic, and I have the default patch in front of me, the Rhodes. And I've customized nothing so far. The only thing I've done is press K so that when I press play,
One bar, one beat, one.
we have
One bar.
that default horrible Logic metronome. Now there's a lot that can be done with project templates, and it's very important that you get everything you want in it. If you're a MIDI guy, set up some MIDI tracks that you like to start working with. If you're an audio guy, set up your audio stuff so that it is the way that you want it to be. Because for me, when I load Logic, I have two tracks that come up. One is a piano, and one of them is an empty track. Both of them use Complete Control as a plugin, not any of the Logic default plugins, because primarily I'm working with Complete Sounds. If I was primarily working with Logic Sounds, then I would have a Logic sound come up. Or I can just hit Y to load the library and do what I need to do. So let's get going. First things first, and there's no particular order for how we do this, is let's see what the control bar is showing and what tempo has to say for itself.
120.0000.
So 120 beats a minute, that's pretty average. Speed it up and slow it down as you wish.
4/4. C major.
4/4, C major.
1 bar, 2 beats, 916 ticks. Playhead position. Scrub group.
Some of this stuff you cannot really change because you don't know what key you're going to be writing in all the time, unless you do, in which case, you can do that.
0005101. Scrub group.
There's a scrubber there.
Plus or minus 0.00. Slider. Percentage. Pop. Project tempo pop-up menu. Choose whether the project tempo is maintained, adapts to the tempo of audio recordings and imported audio files, or if Logic determines the project tempo behavior. Pop-up button.
So something like this project tempo pop-up would be useful to change if you want to. I know that in my template, it's either set to automatic or adapt, so that if I am importing audio that has tempo in it, or Logic will flex it automatically, my project will adapt to it.
Menu. Auto. Automatic. Smart tempo project. Tick. Keep project tempo.
So by default, it's set to keep in Logic.
Adapt. Adapt.
I would set it to adapt or auto.
Auto.
So let's leave it on auto in this case.
Auto. Automatic.
And what we're going to do is, once this is done, we're going to close Logic and reopen it, and we're going to see that our template immediately loads because these are the changes that we want to make and keep.
/16. Pop-up button. 129. Slider.
Now, this end of project marker, I find I like to set it down at 17. And the reason I do that is because sometimes I'm making quick loops for clients, not always fully fledged pieces. And when I do that and I bounce it, if there's a reverb tail that's going to go on longer than my bounce, I don't want to always have to set the end of project marker to something down at the beginning of the project. So I'd much rather that the MIDI or audio data pushes this slider up the track for me, as opposed to me having to drag this down to it. So by setting this in my default template, I know that it's at most going to be 16 bars long. So let's go in and interact with this slider and just drag it all the way down to 17.
In slider 100, 2, 12, 22, 12, 17.
There we go.
Out of slider.
That's 17 bars now.
Custom. Display mode pop-up button.
Now this display mode is set to custom. By default, I think it's actually set to Beats and Project Large. Now, custom actually is my own personal customization of the toolbar up here, and this is also required for Logic to work correctly. I've added a few things to that, as you may have heard, and they may not be in yours, and so you can't take what I'm showing you here as gospel. But if we go in and I can show you what I've got set in my bar, in case any of the options you heard do interest you. I found that between one Logic version and another, and I can't remember the version now, I think it was 10.2.1, I think it was whenever the first project tempo, adapting the audio tempo was introduced, that they took away that slider, the one that we just moved the bars,
17/17, slider.
the end of project marker. And I was very confused and annoyed by this because that was how I set my end of project marker in projects. So I then had to go into this menu here,
Custom. Menu tick. Custom.
and I had to go and customize this.
Time. Beats.
So let's go.
Beats and time.
I'm
large.
going up, by the way.
Beats and time. Beats and project. Beats and project. Save as defaults. Apply defaults. Customize control bar and display ellipsis.
Customize control bar and display.
Customize control bar and display. Window.
Now, when you set all of these options, you can apply them as defaults and you can save them as defaults. But that doesn't mean that anytime you load an old project, they will be set this way. So what you will have to do is to go back into the pop-up and choose apply defaults, I do believe. We'll have a look at that in a moment. So let me just go through every checkbox in here and you can hear what's ticked and what's not ticked. I don't know the meanings of quite everything in here, so I'm not going to pretend I do, but I'm just going to show you what this whole window looks like from my point of view at the moment.
Close pop. Views. Transport. LCD. Modes and function library. Tick. Go to beginning. Unticked. Custom. Pop-up button.
That's the custom itself.
Replace.
Ticked.
Inspector.
Ticked.
Go to position.
Unticked.
Positions. Time/beats.
Ticked.
Auto punch.
Unticked.
Quick help.
Ticked.
Go to left locator.
Unticked.
Locators. Left/right.
Ticked.
Software monitoring.
Unticked.
Toolbar.
Ticked.
Go to right locator.
Unticked.
Sample rate or punch locators.
Unticked.
Auto input monitoring.
Unticked.
Smart controls.
Ticked.
Go to selection start.
Unticked.
Very speed.
Ticked.
Pre-fader metering.
Unticked.
Mixer.
Ticked.
Play from beginning.
Unticked.
Tempo.
Ticked.
Low latency mode.
Unticked.
Editors.
Ticked.
Play from left window edge.
Unticked.
Time signature/division.
Ticked.
Set left/right locator by playhead.
Unticked.
Play from left locator.
Unticked.
Key signature/project end.
Ticked.
Set left/right locator numerically.
Unticked.
List editors.
Ticked.
Play from right locator.
Unticked.
MIDI activity in/out.
Ticked.
Swap left and right locators.
Unticked.
Notepad.
Ticked.
Play from selection.
Unticked.
Load meters CPU/HD.
Ticked.
Move locators by cycle length.
Unticked.
Apple loops.
Unticked.
Rewind/fast rewind.
Ticked.
Set punch in/out locator by playhead.
Unticked.
Browsers.
Ticked.
Forward/fast forward.
Ticked.
Sync.
Unticked.
Stop.
Ticked.
Tuner.
Ticked.
Play.
Ticked.
Solo.
Ticked.
Pause.
Unticked.
Record.
Ticked.
Count in.
Ticked.
Capture recording.
Unticked.
Click.
Ticked.
Cycle.
Ticked.
Master volume.
Ticked.
Apply defaults button.
So here is the end of the window now.
Save as default button. Revert button.
And all of these things I can apply and save as or revert.
Okay.
And
Default.
an OK.
Okay.
So if I escape, will it go away? No. Can I Command W it?
Revert button.
No, I can't.
Okay, okay.
So let me just hit OK then.
Press OK. Untitled. Tracks. Window.
Right, we've returned to tracks. Let's talk now about the inspector. Because there's a few things in this inspector that by default, as you probably know, are not visible. And I'm going to make everything visible because it annoys me and I have to fight to get things to show when I don't want to fight. And it means also that your item chooser is not showing the things that are hidden because, well, they're hidden. So let's make that not the case anymore. So let's go into our inspector.
Button. Out of inspector group.
Oh, yeah,
Inspector
there we
button.
go.
Button.
Right, so there's some buttons in here. They're unlabeled. And let's just go through this whole inspector without changing anything at the moment.
Region. MIDI defaults. Button. Track. Classic electric piano. Classic electric piano. Channel. Stereo out. Channel. Stereo out.
Okay, so 2 out of the 4 things I think that should be showing are showing. So the first thing we'll do is go
Classic
to the
electric piano.
beginning
Button.
and press space on this blank button.
Press
This will expand one table.
Region. MIDI defaults. Table.
There is the first table.
Button.
And then we'll do the same on this other button
Press
and
button.
expand this table.
Track. Classic electric piano. Table.
There we are. Now all of the tables that are, I think, should be showing are showing. So let's talk about table number 1.
Button. Read MIDI defaults. Table. In table. Row 1 of 8. Mute.
This is about quantizing and all sorts of stuff. Most people, by now, you may be familiar with these tables. So I'm going to show you the options that I would personally change in here from the immediate get-go.
Loop. Quantize. Pop-up button.
Quantize, I changed to smart
Menu
quantize.
tick. Smart quantize. Smart quantize.
Because this is the difference for me between and. What was the difference? I slurred. And if I was to play that ordinarily with classic, it would be or. But I want to be able to slur and do trills and ghost notes. And smart quantize would allow me to do that. It guesses exactly what I want to do and will act accordingly. Whereas classic quantize literally is on the grid. Smart quantize is actually very intelligent and does an extremely good job either for MIDI drumming or for when you want to do things like that. And it doesn't just kind of go. It would actually do it right. So if you haven't messed with smart quantize before, I did a tutorial on this back in the day. It's worth having a look at the difference between classic and smart. But anyway, that's my first change in this dialogue.
Off. Pop-up button.
And it's set to off by default, so I will set it to 1/16. I can always come back and change that while or after I'm recording. This will mean, by the way, that once I have recorded, it will automatically set this the way that it should be for me. So I won't have to come in and press Q every time. It will actually automatically quantize. Now, you can turn it off after record, and I personally prefer to work this way. Some people want to be free all the time, and that's fine too. There is no right and wrong way here, by the way. This is all very, very personal, very subjective, and I'm not telling you how to do things. I'm just showing you how I do things, and that is the major difference.
Menu tick off. 1/8 note. 1/16 note. 1/16 note.
So that's now set.
Smart quantize. 1/16 note. Pop-up button.
The rest of this dialogue for a bit is kind of non-changeable, so let's just keep going down.
Fuse 50 transpo plus dash velocity plus more.
Collapsed.
Right, we have this more checkbox that some people had trouble expanding, and there's a lot of cool stuff underneath here. We're not going to change anything, but if we leave it all expanded, when we come to finally save our template, which we're going to do very shortly, it will stay expanded, and that's the best part about this.
More.
Dimmed unticked.
Okay,
Checkbox. More.
Collapsed.
so this more collapsed. Let's see if we can do this. What I did is do VO shift space on it. Did it expand?
More.
Expanded. 10
And it
closed.
did. Voiceover shift space. So if you're using caps lock, then do caps lock shift space. If you're not using caps lock, do I will say command control option shift space, and that will basically expand this because some people had a lot of trouble trying to interact and stop interacting and checking this box that wouldn't uncheck. So now it's expanded. Let's look what's under here.
Delay.
Levels.
Plus 0 ticks. Dynamics. 100%. Gate time. 100%. Clip length.
Ticked.
Score. Show. Pop-up dash. Q anti-flame. 0%. Q range. Plus 0 ticks. Q strength. 100%. 100%. Slider.
So there's a lot going on in there, and a lot of it at the moment is not relevant. There's no MIDI data on the track. There's nothing I want to change. All I want to do is to make sure that that thing is as expanded as it can be, because it does help when you're looking for item chooser. Now, it will make your machine somewhat, occasionally, busy, but don't be put off by this, because all we do is we hide the inspector later with I if we want to. For the purposes of this demo, though, we're leaving the inspector open and the mixer open, because when we save the template, those are the things that I personally need to see when I'm working. Once you've gotten a few tracks down, or as soon as you've loaded your template, I would then advise hiding until you need it, or doing whatever the case may be. That's another thing I did, I forgot to mention during the start of this demo, was that I shut the library with the Y key, because I don't want to see the library at this very moment in time. Okay,
Mixer group.
I'm tabbing,
Tracks group.
and we're back in the tracks area. Let's talk about left and right locator and cycle, and metronome, sorry. Metronome
One bar,
first.
one beat, one tick.
I think this metronome is utterly vile, and the first thing I'm going to do is change it. So I'm using the VLogic key map.
Untitled. Project settings. Dial.
I pressed F4 on my keyboard, or in my case, because this Bluetooth keyboard doesn't seem to allow me to switch the functions, I had to do FN F4 or function F4 to get into project settings.
Untitled. Toolbar options. Simple mode. Click while recording.
So we're in metronome now, and you can press K while playing or recording for these options as well. Well, to turn on and off the metronome, not for these options. So let's have a look at this dialogue.
Only during counting.
Unticked.
Click while playing.
Ticked.
Checkbox.
While playing, I've got them set both at the moment.
Polyphonic clicks.
Ticked.
Checkbox.
Polyphonic clicks has got to go. I hate that sound.
Anti-polyphonic clicks. Checkbox.
Let's play the metro. We can play the piece like that. I'm just pressing enter and space from within this dialogue. You can actually hear it. Now, I find this pitch incredibly high pitch, and I find the note length is too long for my purposes. I don't like it.
Source. Audio click. Click. Jice. MIDI click. Note. Velocity. Channel. Note. Velocity. Bar.
Ticked.
Right.
Checkbox.
Let's see. I found the first checkbox, and I'm going to do voiceover up and down because it's basically a table.
Source. Bar.
Ticked.
Okay,
Checkbox.
bar is fine.
B6. Slider.
And the note for that is
Logic Alexa, new window.
B6. If I play and adjust while playing, we will hear this thing drop down the octave or wherever.
In slide C6. D6.
Let's set it to somewhere like
F6.
there.
Out of slider.
Okay, now that's one done.
127. Slider. 10.
And the
Slider.
velocity and the channel.
C music sharp sign 2. Slider.
All right, what
Logic
do we
Alexa,
see
new window.
here?
112. C 10. Slider. 100 F music sharp sign
Sorry
6.
about that.
Ticked.
Velocity bar.
Ticked.
Okay, that's
Checkbox.
bar.
Group.
Ticked.
Checkbox.
Group. Now, group is... Oh, what is group?
Group checkbox. For compound and composite signatures. Generates note events for each group.
Oh, for compound and composite signatures. I'm going to uncheck it for now.
Anti-group check. Beat.
Ticked.
Beat.
Checkbox. B5. Slider.
B5. Let's drop this down
Logic
to
Alexa,
F
new
sharp 4,
In
I
slider.
think it is.
C5. D4. E F F G4. F4. F4. F4.
Oh, octave up.
E5. F F5.
Okay, we have an octave metronome now. It's we could sort of almost mimic the Cubase or Pro Tools metronome like this, but
Out of slider.
you know, this is all very subjective, as I say. But
90. Slider.
just to show you that once we are done this, we're
Logic
going to
Alexa,
save this and we're going to see the difference it makes.
10. C music 68. Division.
Anti.
A music sharp sign 5.
Dim.
60. 10.
Divisions are not checked. It would actually be doing quarter notes if we did that.
C 52.
Dim.
Tone. 78.7%. Slider.
Okay, now the tone. Let's change the tone slider.
In slider. 73.7%. 68.7%.
Too low and you get hardly anything there, and then it's very hard to hear over your drums.
58.7%.
See, it's almost
54.
non-existent.
33. 23. 0%.
Now it's just a tick. Let's go all the way to 100. That's annoying. So, somewhere in the middle.
85%. 80%. 60. 55%. 60%. 65%. 70%.
I think that's a fairly decent, reasonable place for it to be. So there we go. We've got our metronome set. It's different than the default. And metronome is interesting because it's per project. So you can come in and change this after you've loaded your template. If you need a loud metronome or you want those divisions and quarter notes on a different project, or you want to swap that your high and low beats are reversed, like Reaper, for example, you can do all that. And that's the joy of it. So,
Out of slider. Port. MIDI port pop up 1-2. Pop output.
oh, it's the output and all that.
90.6%.
So there's no apply in this. We just literally Command W this window. It's gone.
Untitled. Tracks. Window.
All right. Well, first things first, we've made a fair few changes. So let me do,
Tracks. Group. 1.
using the VO Logic key map, I'm going to do Option C, which will ask me to clean up the project, and it will get rid of any extemporaneous old project backups and undo steps and saves and all sorts. And it will make your template very small when you load it. Because what you don't want is to have a template that, as soon as you bring it into Logic, is already several megabytes big, and then you're saving that on top of your existing work. You need the template to be as small as possible, not to record any data in your template, because once you've recorded data in it, it's no longer a usable template, really. Not for this sort of work, not for immediately getting and going, because, of course, every time you start recording, you're going to be changing what's going on. So it doesn't make sense to record in this template. This should be your I want to go now template, not I've got ideas that are based on other ideas template. So let's do that, and I'm just going to hit enter. I know all the boxes are checked. This, by the way, is the
Clean up project. Clean up project. Options.
Clean Up Project Options dialog.
Clean up. Untitled.
Enter. There we go. That's cleared off any undo steps, any project saves, anything like that. So let's first go into the file menu
Menu bar. File. File. Menu.
and go down.
Save. Save as ellipse. Save a copy as ellipse. Save as template ellipsis.
Save as template.
Save as template. Zoom. Untitled.
Content selected.
And I'm lazy, and it also means that I know that the template file name will not change. I could call it my working template, but if I called it my working template and I came in one day and decided I wanted to change a lot of things about it, and I called it my WW working template because I mistyped, then there would be two of them, and then I'd have to go back and fight with it. So call it lazy or call it expedient, I don't know. I always leave my project template, the main one that I use, called Untitled, so that I don't have to rename it, I don't have to resave the name of it, and it will always be under the same name every time I work.
Untitled. Track.
That's now saved as a template. So why don't we close Logic down entirely, and then we'll reload it with our existing template, and you will hear the difference from when we started. And that way you know that what you're doing is working, because we've already set it up to load from this template early on in the preferences dialog. So let's close Logic.
Quit Logic. Blue.
I don't want to save.
Select
I'll
dialog.
do Command Shift Space, which is the I don't want to save this.
Don't
Thank you
save.
very much. And Logic is gone. Let's reload Logic now.
Dock. Lock. Finder. Desktop. Desktop.
Empty.
Group.
It's loading. Please wait.
Logic Alex. Untitled. Tracks. Window.
And it's back. And is our metronome settings working and everything? Yes, it is. Everything is as we left it. Fantastic. And that template loaded up in no time, and it didn't ask us what we wanted to do because it knows that we don't want to load a previous project or start work on something that we've already got it set up. So A few other things that you might want to change. I'm not going to show you necessarily these, but I will just quickly talk about them. If you might want to, for example, change this Rhodes. You might want to change it to a piano or a third-party instrument. So if you want to do that, of course, do that from either the inspector or the mixer. I usually recommend the mixer because it works 99.9% of the time as opposed to 60 like the inspector does for various reasons. And add a few more tracks in so that you've got some wiggle room if you want. In my default untitled template, I have a piano and a spare track, as I said. And this allows me a little bit of room if I want to quickly put piano and bass down, but I don't want to put down 3 or 4 things. 2 tracks is enough because, of course, you can just duplicate the existing track with Command D anyway. So that's really it for this one. I hope that you found that of some use. And if you have any further questions for me, do get in touch by the usual methods. Thanks for listening and take care.